Madame la Présidente.
President, Commissioners, we are very much attached to state sovereignty, territorial integrity and the inviolable nature of our borders, and that's why we clearly and unambiguously denounce the violations of airspace carried out by Russia. But this is a hard line that needs to be accompanied by lucidity and proportionality. Excessive responses, which call any intrusion an act of war and call for any flying object to be shot down, really hide what is generally at stake and are counterproductive. They tend to feed Russian propaganda, which tend to present countries that are victims as those responsible for escalation. And this panicked response is something which creates a climate of fear, which doesn't facilitate but rather counteracts ambitious military policy. There are violations on our eastern flank, but our pilots and our armed forces are in control, so let's not panic or get involved in self-defeating paranoia. We're not at war with Russia, and that is fortunate, but we are not in peace either. These categories haven't disappeared, but they are two extreme ends of a spectrum in which there are many grey areas, each party trying to impose their will on the other. And that's where we are, in a grey zone of peace war with Russia. Any call to commit irreversible acts should be avoided, but at the same time we shouldn't be paralysed by the threats we are facing. Because let's not kid ourselves. Military invasion is not the only option that a state has to impose its will on another. When we talk about the new generation of war, we often forget that the best strategists are not just sitting in some Western think tanks, but also they exist in Russia, where long ago they thought about a doctrine that would avoid the use of armed engagement to achieve objectives, strategic objectives. So what can we do? Deter. Deter from a potentially active role of our armed forces. Deter by turning the page on the last 30 years, where we proclaimed the end of history and also proclaimed the end of territory. But territory is back, and at the same time there is a need to protect it, to be robust and resilient, not just protect against jihadist groups, but also against opponent or hostile states. Deterring avoids harm, and that's what we should be capable of doing in Europe with regard to Russia. So no gung-ho militarism or bleeding heart Municism, to translate the words of de Gaulle when he was talking about those who wanted to appease Khrushchev. So deterrence, because war is not desirable and peace is not yet possible. Thank you.
See, now for the ECR group, Adam Bielan, 2 minutes.